Yes, ma'am.
What is number 67?
Number 67. I'm overloaded with information right now. Somebody assure me we haven't done that.
No.
Good. I think it was 57 we did. So number 67 on Appendix A. Read it to me, please.
If Strickland's payday loan company raises the interest rate it charges on payday loans, how would this be shown on a supply and demand graph?
And here's where we finally take a little bit of economic theory and apply it to the real world. This is not necessarily intuitive, okay? What we're asking about, what is the interest rate with respect to loans and supply and demand and money?
Cost of reductions?
Not quite. If I'm the lender and you're the borrower, what is the interest rate? You're going to borrow money from me. How are you going to pay for it? With the interest rate. The interest rate is the price of the money I'm going to rent to you. You see that? So interest rate is going to be our price element, and then the number of dollars that people want to borrow is going to be the quantity element. And you're going to have a relationship, presumably something like this. That's how borrowers behave. What is that saying? What is that demand curve telling you?
The higher the interest, the less they want.
Good. We always start up here. We say, if the interest rate is this much, then the amount they borrow is this much. Okay? If, then. This demand curve is saying how much people will borrow at each interest rate. You with that? What does the supply curve say? This is for borrowers. Here's the supply curve. What's that describing? Who are the sellers here?
The banks.
The banks. Snappy Strickland's Lending Emporium, right?
The higher
I'll
the
lend you
interest,
money.
the more they'll lend.
The higher the interest rate, the more money I will make available to loan. And between the two of them, there is an equilibrium. Okay so far? Now, whatever the interest rate is, 12%. If I increase the interest rate, what have I done? I basically, you can't, your demand's not going to shift. That's a change in the price. We're going to go somewhere up here to a higher interest rate. And what I've basically done is restricted the supply of money. It used to be at 12%, I was willing to loan $1 million a week. But now, before I'll loan that much money, I want a higher rate. And the equilibrium is here at 14%, and at that rate I'll loan $700,000 a week. That's what's happened. We don't do a lot of this in micro, but I guarantee you, later in the course, and certainly in managerial econ, whether you're going organizational management or you're going HSA, you've got to be able to take the supply and demand paradigm and use it different ways. You know, what if this was wages? How would we use this with wages and labor? We'd say here's the wage rate, and here's maybe the number of workers who get a job.
Higher the wages, less work.
What's that say? Who's the demander here? Who's buying workers?
The employer.
The employers. And what does that curve tell you? When wages fall, what?
Less work.
They hire more workers. You with me? What's the supply curve? Who's selling?
The worker.
Workers. And if this is workers, if wages go up, what happens to the number of people out there offering to work? More people are willing to work. And presumably, there's some magic equilibrium wage out there where everybody who wants a job at that wage gets a job. It's supply and demand principles extended to real markets out there. Okay? So that question's a little bit of a stretch the first time or two you see it, that's all. How are we doing? Yes, ma'am.
Can you do, number one on appendix C?
Appendix C, number 1. What does it say?
A and B are substitutes in production.
A and B, substitutes in production, okay?
The price floor is set at equilibrium for good A.
Price floor at equilibrium for A, okay?
Subsequently, the price of B increases.
Price of B increases.
What will happen with good A?
What will happen to the market for A? It was pointed out to me, I saw an email earlier today that I did not put the videos for price floors and price ceilings on the VRSQ. I have put an announcement up with the 2 videos and changed the VRSQ to also have it in there. So if you didn't take the time to find out about price floors and price ceilings by going on the internet or whatever else, those videos are now available. Okay? So rather than go through a lengthy price floor and price ceiling discussion, let's deal with this first at least. We have an equilibrium for good A. This is the equilibrium point and price. There's your quantity. And now we say that we are setting a price floor at equilibrium. So here is our price floor. What does a price floor mean?
Can't charge less.
It is the minimum price you can charge. If you charge a price below this, we will put you in jail. Okay? And then it says, subsequent to that, the price of B, a substitute in production, falls. Well, how does that rule work again? Substitutes in production? If the price of B, which is a substitute in production for good A, rises, what happens over at A?
Falls. No, it falls.
Substitutes in production. Price of one affects what? Demand or supply?
Supply.
Supply. Production, supply. Substitutes in production. Price of one affects supply of the other. Which way do the arrows go?
Opposite.
Opposite. So what are we saying? What's going to happen here? There's going to be a decrease in supply. So when we draw a decrease in supply, equilibrium goes from point A to point B. Is the price allowed to go from A to B when there's a price floor here?
Yes.
Yes, because you are above the price, you're legal. Okay so far? So what's going to happen? Basically, price is going to rise, quantity is going to decrease, go happily on your way. Everybody okay with that part? What if we said this? The price of B falls. How would that change our analysis? That's right. If the price of B falls, then the supply of A increases. An increase in supply would be over here. We would go from A to B down here. But
Can't do that. Can't do that.
if you do that, you go to jail. Price can't go that low. So what you're seeing now is, let's eliminate the supply curve. It's not here anymore. Remember, the supply shifted. And we have a market where the equilibrium price is down here at B, but the price can't go that low. What's going to happen?
Surplus.
think in terms of this. The price is much higher than people want to pay. So nobody wants to buy it. What about sellers? They're thinking, good high price like that? Oh, hell yeah, I got a lot for sale. What do you got? You got more out there than people want to buy. If you read it on the graph, you read at the price to the demand curve and at the price to the supply curve. At the demand curve, you read down and you say, well, that's how many people want, and that's how many sellers want to sell. The quantity supplied is more than the quantity demanded. That would be a surplus. And that would be your correct answer in this case. So if you want to look at some of those questions that have floors and surpluses, maybe that'll help you through them. Yes, ma'am?
Outside of like agriculture, where does this actually happen? I can't,
Not so much, particularly in the United States. Very common historically. Still practiced in a lot of lesser developed countries.
for like normal things?
Oh yeah. Think about it this way. We're in an underdeveloped country, and you and I are very, very wealthy dairy farmers. And the government wants what more than anything else? The people, the government officials, money. We slip them some money, and they pass laws that say what? Price of milk is $10, $15 a gallon. And everybody else is screaming, but you and I are sitting here saying, we may not sell as much milk, but boy, we're going to get a good price on it. You think that businesses would pay off government officials for those kind of laws? I hope so, right?
Especially if it's
A necessity.
yes.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay? And then what's the other thing you do? You try to get the government to set it up there so that you sell all you can at $15, and then the government promises to come in and buy your surplus directly from you for maybe $12. And man, you're coining money. You're paying off all the politicians you need. So high prices, or let's call them price floors, are designed to protect who? Sellers. What about price ceilings? What if I got out there running for office for Gainesville or Alachua County and said, I think the highest rent that should be allowed anywhere in Alachua County for a 2-bedroom apartment should be not more than $300 a month? Would I be popular? I'd be real popular with the students, wouldn't I? The renters. What would the landlords be saying? They'd be looking for where I live.
The renters are gonna have a problem because you're not gonna have enough apartments.
Perfect. There's going to be 30 million people out there looking for apartments, 2-bedroom apartments. Can't find them because they're all gone. As a landlord, which I am, what do you think I would do with my 2-bedroom apartment? Would I rent it for $300 a month? Hell no, I'd be losing money. My mortgage is more than that. What do you think I'd do?
Rent by the room or?
I'd buy me some drywall and some 2x4s, and I would subdivide my 2-bedroom apartment into a 9-bedroom apartment. You would all share one little hot plate to cook on. You all share the same bathroom, and you would all sleep vertically like a damn bat. Okay? So what happens when the government comes in and imposes these price floors and price ceilings? They distort the market, and the market tries to find ways around it. And most of us are pretty damn creative about finding ways around it. Now, markets have problems. They create some problems. But trying to fix them with price floors and price ceilings has generally been proven to be very ineffective.
But it's a rubber stamp, it doesn't account for all the other factors.
Say again?
So it's more of a rubber stamp, like, oh, we're just gonna do this to appease
Yeah.
the majority, but not everyone.
Well, in a sense,
Too many
think of
people
it.
take advantage of.
Yeah, we say, oh, there'll be a surplus. Well, that's not all, Moose Breath. Once we got a surplus, you better think through how we're going to deal with it. Or if there's a shortage of apartments. You got to think through the implications of your policies. Frequently, there are what we call unintended effects, also known as, oops, I didn't think about that. All right, what else?
Can I do an example with the price ceiling?
Sure.
Like number 64.
Number 64 has a price ceiling. Let's do that. Appendix A, number 64. Go ahead.
A price ceiling is imposed above the current equilibrium.
Price ceiling is imposed above equilibrium.
What would happen in the market for A if the technology used in producing product A improves at the same time that the number of consumers increase?
P star means equilibrium. The price ceiling is greater than equilibrium. And two things occur: better technology and an increase in the number of buyers or consumers. Well, if technology improves, which curve does that shift?
Supply.
Supply. If there's an increase in the number of consumers, which curve does that shift?
Demand.
Demand. When both curves move, and you read that right off the bat, you say, oh, both curves are moving, draw two graphs. Don't put all this on one graph. Trust me, okay? So here's my first graph. Here is equilibrium. And the price ceiling is above that. Price ceiling. Is there any problem in this market? Nope. Price ceiling is the highest price you can charge. Doesn't even matter here because the market's charging this price. No problem so far. Let's draw the same graph over here. Oops. And on the left-hand graph, let's shift the demand curve. Number of consumers increases. What happens to the demand curve? Increase in demand. We don't know how far, do we? This could get kind of tricky. It could go to here, or here, or here. See that? Let's do this. This will be D0, this is D1, D2, D3. If the curve goes to D1, what's happened? Right here. Are we still okay? Market's still working? Sure. We just see the price has gone up, sales have gone up. If it goes to D2, right, what happened? Same thing, we're fine. Price rose, quantity increased. But if it goes to D3 out here, what's the problem there? You're above the ceiling. Your price is not allowed to go above the ceiling. If you try to go above the ceiling, you have this quantity demanded, this quantity supplied, and you have a shortage. Okay so far? Everybody following with that? A little bit messy. Keep that in mind for a moment. Let's go to the shift in supply. Technology improves. What's that going to do? Increase supply. Your price, your equilibrium is going to go from A to B. Price is going to fall. Quantity is going to increase. And that's fine because you're below the ceiling. So here's our realm of possibilities. So now you have to read through each answer on that question, one at a time, and see if it is consistent with these solutions. What's answer A?
There would be a shortage.
Is there going to be a shortage?
Eventually.
Could be.
Potentially.
Is there guaranteed to be a shortage?
No.
No. Then you can't say that that is true. It's only true if it's gonna happen, okay? What's answer B?
There would be a surplus.
There would be a surplus. Is there gonna be a surplus? You never get a surplus with a ceiling. You only get surpluses with floors. That's wrong. What's answer C?
The equilibrium price of product A would increase, but the amount sold would be ambiguous.
The price will increase, but quantity will be ambiguous. Well, we got price increase, price decrease. Price is not necessarily going to increase, so that's not right. What's answer D?
There could arise either a shortage or a new equilibrium involving greater quantity.
there could arise either a shortage or a new equilibrium involving a greater quantity. And that's true on all cores. That's probably one of the more complex questions in all of the appendices. Okay, how are we doing?
What about the ones from like appendix B and D?
That's exactly what I was going to go to next.
Yeah.
How have you, anybody here been
Math.
wading out into the water with appendix B and D? Okay. Those are three different situations, and let me go through two of them that are pretty straightforward, okay? The first one deals with the mathematics of equilibrium. It's real simple equation solving. I give you a demand curve function, something like this. QD is 600 minus 4P. That is the equation for that straight line demand curve.
And you would give us that.
I would give you that.
Okay.
Okay. I would also tell you this is for one buyer, and there are 6,000 buyers in this market. So instead of the individual's demand curve, what is the market demand curve? It's 6,000 of these. So the market demand is 6,000 of 600 minus 4P. And we'll distribute that out, and we get what? 36 and 5 zeros. And we count back, 3,600,000. Minus 4 times 6,000 is 24,000 P. And so this is the market demand equation. I will also give you the supply equation. For example, quantity supplied equals minus 20 plus 3P. That is the equation of the supply curve for one seller. And I tell you there are 15 sellers. So then the market supply curve is 15 of those things. So we get supply equals negative 300 plus 45P. Everybody okay with me up so far? See where I did that? Seems to me that's about what, 8th grade math? It doesn't get any more complicated. Now you set the two equal to each other, right? So that the amount demanded will be equal to the amount supplied. That'll be your equilibrium. When you set these two equations equal to each other, what do you see? You have one equation with one unknown, the letter P. Can you solve for the value of the letter P? Set it up. Everybody with me? 3,600,000, 600,000 and 300. Everybody see where I got 24,045 feet? What do you do next? Divide both sides by 24,045. Whatever that number is your equilibrium price. It's a very mechanical process, no real genius required. Suppose we could break down and do it just as a last desperate measure.
149.73.
Good for you. $149.73. And, you know, you may round off here and there, there's a little difference, who cares, right? If that's the price in the market, how will I decide what the quantity is?
Plug
Plug
it
it.
back
Plug
in.
it.
Or is that either
Take
one?
that number and plug it back in here on the supply equation, and then to check it, plug it back in here on the demand equation. And you should, ideally you get exactly the same number, but probably because there's some rounding off, you get two different answers, but they'll be fairly close together. That's it. Okay? Yes, no? Minus 300 plus 45 times 149.73 and 3,000,006 minus 24,000 times 149.73. And they should be approximately the same answer, some rounding difference. Good idea to bring a calculator. Questions? Can I erase it? For managerial economics, kind of starts here. The second topic in the Appendix B and D is called Consumers Surplus. There are videos on what I'm doing already on YouTube. So be sure to see them as many times as you want. All we do here is we draw a demand curve. We figure out where it intercepts the price axis and what that number is. Let's call that $50. And we pick a price. Well, let's pick this price. This price is $30. And we say, well, how many will they buy? They'll buy 100. And then I'm going to ask you two questions. How much money did they spend total? How much did the buyers spend buying those 100 units? $3,000, right? 100 times 30, which is the area of this rectangle, right? 30 times 100 is called the total revenue. That's price times quantity, total revenue. That's how much revenue the seller gets or how much spending the buyer makes. Okay, so far? But what do we know? We know that every time you open your store and you put something out for sale with a sign on it, we know there are some customers who come in who really would have spent more money. Trouble is, you don't know which ones they were. You wish you had a little monitor so that every time somebody walked in, it went off and said, this guy will spend $220. Next guy comes in and says, this is a cheapskate and won't spend but $115. So that way you could get each one aside and you could bargain with him and get all his money. Doesn't work that way in the real world. We know there's money coming into your store that you didn't get it all and some of it walks back out. And what we call that is the consumer surplus. If you go out to buy a $150 lawnmower that's got these attachments to it, you come into the store and it's on sale for $100, are you going to pay $150? Hell no, you're going to pay $100 and go out the door thinking, I'm $50 up. That's your consumer surplus. We measured the total consumer surplus from all of our buyers by the area of this triangle. See, for the very first sale out here, somebody was willing to pay up here damn near $50, but we sold it to him for $30. And for the second unit sold, somebody was willing to pay almost that much again, on all the way down. And so we say the area of this triangle is your consumer's surplus. How do you measure the area of a triangle? How do you calculate it?
Half times base.
1/2 the base times the height. Been that way ever since the Civil War, when I learned it. What's the area of that triangle? The base is 100, whether you measure it here or here. What's the height?
20?
20. From 30 to 50 is the height of the triangle. What do you get? Come on, public school graduates, do the math. $1,000. That guy's going to hit you over the head or something? How much was the total revenue? How much did your customers give you?
3,000.
$3,000. Total revenue was $3,000. Your consumer surplus was $1,000. How's that make you feel about running your store? Pretty good? I want you to go to sleep and lay awake at nights thinking about that $1,000 extra that kept walking out of your store that you too damn dumb to go get.
Yeah.
Right? How do you get it? This is managerial economics. Lots of pricing strategies to do that. The simple one is you don't put the price out. Somebody comes in, you say, oh, hi, see you're looking at that. Let me show you this one. What do you think of it? That's pretty nice. How much is it? $100. And he says, oh, I'm not going to pay that much, and you negotiate back and forth, and you get as much as you can. Is there anybody that does business like that? You'd haggle with everybody, is that it? And guess what? It's more common today than it used to be. You can go into some of the bigger box stores. That's a nice flat screen TV, but I'm not paying that price. What's the best you can do? Watch them panic, man, because a lot of people don't know how to deal with it.
And they always go get a manager.
You bet they do. Yeah. And on the selling side, who always sells that way?
Like car.
Car salesman, right? You come on my car lot, what's one of the first things I ask you? How much you looking to spend? And you say, because you think you're cool, you say, oh, not more than about $5,000. And my first thought is, you're a liar. And if I can give you the right car, I know you can find a way to get more money. So the first car I go show you has got a tag on it that says $8,300. And I say, let's take a look at this one. Get inside. You guys say, oh, I can't pay that much. And what do I say? Oh, don't worry about it. That's just the asking price. We'll bump that down when we talk with the boss, right? Right? And what happens over the next 2 to 4 to 6 hours?
They convince you to pay the $8,000.
Well, actually, probably if I'm doing a good job and I'm giving you the right car, you're going to drive out of there with that car for $6,800. But you told me you couldn't spend but $5,000. So I got some of your consumer surplus. And that's what sales and business is all about. I want you to be able to calculate the consumer surplus, calculate the total revenue, and recognize that when you add them together, we call that the total value received by the customer. The customer got $4,000 worth of value and only paid $3,000 for it. And your job is to figure out ways to get that other $1,000 or some part of it. So that's consumer surplus. And from a business standpoint, it's a concept that too many people don't think enough about. One of the other ways we try to get your consumer surplus, I walked into Walmart the other day looking at lawnmowers. And they must have had 15 lawnmowers up on display, running from $120 to $300 or $400 or $500. Every price up there. What are they doing?
Tempting.
They're saying, how much you want to spend? And, you know, do you really want to buy the cheapest one up there?
No.
If you have to, fine. But if you really have a little more money than that, you start asking, since I'm worried about that cheap one. You know, it's not going to last long. Let's see, how much I got to spend to get a decent one? Got you. That's all we're doing. All right? Those are the two simple calculations out of the topics, Appendix B and Appendix D. The third calculation is a little more complicated. We'll go through, let's say part of it right now, okay? This third one is called the incidence of a tax. We're going to put a tax on the sellers, a sales tax. Because we're government and we need the money. So here's the demand curve, here's the supply curve. The price is $6, and we typically sell 100 units a day. And the government comes in and says to the seller, we are now going to impose on you a tax of $1 for each unit that you sell. What does that do to you as a seller? That $1 per unit, what is that?
Money out of my pocket.
It's coming out of your pocket. It's kind of a cost of production. It's a cost of running your business. When you have an increase in the cost of running your business, what happens to your supply curve? It decreases or shifts to the left. In this case, we're going to say that it shifts to the left, but basically it means before you sell 100 units anymore, you used to be willing to get $6 a piece. Now you want $7 a piece so you can pay the government. So put that point on your graph. 100 units, I want $7. And so your new supply curve, parallel to the old one, has shifted vertically by the amount of the tax. Important to remember that. The curve shifts vertically by the amount of the tax. Did the price go up by $1 a unit? Look at the new equilibrium point up here. Did the price go up $1? Here's the new equilibrium. The price went up $6 to $6.51. You see that? I'm estimating here, but you know, I got a lot of experience doing that, so it's pretty accurate. Okay so far? Now you're the seller. You're now selling these things for $6.51, but you're sending the government $1 a piece. Out of that $1, how much did you get from the consumer, the buyer?
51 cents.
You got 51 cents. He's paying that much a higher price. So the change in the equilibrium price, this amount right here, is how much the buyer pays. The rest of it, up to $7, is how much the seller pays. Does that make sense? And let's say that you're now selling 90 units. How much money is the government making? $1 a piece times 90, $90. So out of the total tax of $90, how much of it is paid by the consumer, the buyer? 51 cents a piece. What's 90 times 51 cents? Public school math now, come on, we can do this. Huh?
45.9.
$45.90. $45.90 is paid by the buyer. Therefore, how much is paid by the seller? 44.10. Everybody okay with that? Again, there are videos on this. What we do to change it is we start saying, well, what if the demand curve is really flat? Then when the supply curve shifts, the price doesn't change very much at all. What would that mean?
The government doesn't really get that much.
Government doesn't get a lot of revenue because there's a huge decrease in sales. How much of that tax is paid by the buyer?
The majority?
The equilibrium price only goes up a little bit.
Yeah, right.
So the seller gets stuck. He pays almost all the tax and loses a huge volume of sales. And the government collects very little money. Would the government be that stupid?
Yes.
They imposed a tax on large boats. I think it was boats over 16 foot. They imposed an extra tax on them, thinking anybody buying bigger than a 16-foot boat's got money, they'll go ahead and pay it. Well, if you've got a 34-foot boat, and you're thinking about buying a new one, and now suddenly it's going to cost you more with this extra tax, a lot of people thought about that and said, you know, I could still get out and fish in my old boat. I think I'll just stay with that. And so what happened? New boat sales took a dive. Government collected very little money. And the people who worked in the boat yards and the sales of boats lost jobs like crazy. When they started screaming to Congress and raising hell, Congress said, ooh, guess we screwed up, and they took the tax back off. So they do that once in a while because they didn't study principles of economics. All right? You want to look at what happens when the demand curve is real flat and what happens when it's real steep. You get very different conclusions. All those are on the videos. Go through them. Those problems, and there's only 3 or 4 or 5 of them on the total test, those problems, I think, are gifts. They should be fairly easy, but make sure you pick them apart. Now, when is the exam? June the 10th. Would you like to meet again sometime? Let's see, what is next week? Next week is the week of the 2nd,
That's the first one.
right? So perhaps maybe same time, give or take, next week? Would that work? Okay, let me look and see if I can get in the classroom. Would 1 o'clock work any better? No?
Wow.
What,
That's,
are we talking about the same day
Yeah?
of the week?
Thursday at 1. Is that okay?
I got class. Well, I can,
Yeah, ain't nothing as important as economics.
yeah.
I'll aim at 2 o'clock, at least I can get already out here at 2 o'clock.
Perfect.
Two will be good.
Okay. I'll try to set it up for next Thursday at 2 o'clock. We'll go back through a few of these things. You be sure you do the appendices B and D. Now remember, by that time, you should have finished really appendixes A, B, C, D, E, and F. F is an old exam. Level of difficulty is a little higher than all the other appendices. So don't do F until you think you're ready for the exam, but try to get that done before next week. Okay? Anything else? Peace.